here we are. Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to my salon, my symposium, my TED Talk, my meetup. My name, my real name, is Aspasia. And if this is your first time, don't worry, you're in good hands. I've been doing this a long time, for more than 2,000 years, in fact. I lost track of how old I was after so many calendar changes, but now we have Wikipedia. And I guess I made quite the impression because I have my own page. And it says that I was born in 470 BC. So that's, you look mathy.
I'm good at acting.
2000, okay, well, I think it's almost my 2500th birthday. Let me tell you, that is going to be quite the party. Oh, to be honest, I don't actually know what day my birthday is because the months were so different back then, but anyway, you can believe me when I ask you to trust me, darling. You're perfectly safe, and we are going to have a lovely time. Ah, welcome. Come on in. Welcome to my salon. Make yourself at home. Please take a seat in the front if you so dare, or oh, there are two of you, so sit wherever you like. I was just saying welcome, saying we're going to have a lovely time, and also, if it seems early, just remember that, oh, I forgot to tell you, I've been doing this for more than 2,000 years. I found out on Wikipedia that I was born in 470 BC. Because they changed the calendar so many times, I've personally lost track. Just to catch you up. If it seems early, water was unsafe to drink for most of my lifetime, so it's just like a force of habit. I can't help myself. All right. Now, I may not look a day over 30, but I was born in the city of Miletus in ancient Greece. A beautiful coastal city. It's now found in Turkey, I believe. When my sister got married, I moved with her to Athens, the big city. It was dust lifting off of the ground from so many sandals in the marketplace, cowbells tinkling, merchants shouting at passers-by, instruments jangling from some far-off corner, the smells of olives and figs and barrels of wine in the sun, and the smoke of roasting meat billowing like clouds. I loved Athens. I finally felt like I had arrived. And that's where I met my first love. Pericles, the famous statesman, you may have heard of him. Pericles and I became lovers and partners. I was not like other Athenian women of my day. I received an education, and I spent my days in very unusual ways. Consulting with Pericles on matters of state, and entertaining the inspired minds of the day like Anaxagoras, and my dear friend, Socrates. I am what was known as a Hetaira, a type of courtesan, if you will. As a Hetaira, it was my solemn responsibility to entertain, to inspire, to intellectually stimulate, and to culturally imbue the elite and the astute of Athens. Educated, unmarried, and a true citizen of Athens, I even paid taxes. Quite the scandal, in a world where women simply married and disappeared behind the walls of their homes, like caged birds with beautiful but impotent songs. My songs had power. In fact, my influence in politics was so well known that many blamed me for the entire Samian War. Well, you had to be there. When matters of state were finished, Pericles, Socrates, our friends, and I spent hours together drinking wine and contemplating the wonders of the universe. And of course, I entertained them with stories and with songs. There was a poet who lived before my time, Sappho, a delicious poet who wrote ecstatically of her love of the gods and of other women. I used to love making up songs to her poems. Painetae moi genus isos theoisin, placion, ad fonesas upacue, cae gelaisas imeroendo, meman cardian stetessin, epto aisen, osganes sido brocheos, me fulais, udeneteke, alla kamen glosa, agelepton, dautica croipur, uparidromaken. It was a terrific time, so full of wonder and fun and depth. So, how did I end up here? I can hear you wondering. Well, my friends, that is quite literally a long story. I spent the next 1,000 years traveling from place to place, picking up songs and stories, carrying my lyre and the oral traditions of a millennium. And I set up gatherings, like this one, wherever I went. I always do seem to attract the artistic and intellectual. I've often provided inspiration to others. It has always been this way. And it's how I survived when I could have no family, no career, nothing that would tie me to one place for too long. Nothing but the songs and the stories and the voices of so many conversations. I explored the Persian Empire and Alexander's Greek Empire. Ruthless man, but charming. Oh, and then there was the Seleucid Empire. Well, it made it easy for me to travel to many different lands without seeming out of place. The Silk Road was a highlight. The Romans came and went. I kept on traveling, and eventually I found myself in the North. Now, the Norsemen, and specifically the Vikings, did not have the best reputation. But at home, in their own land, they were friendly, fiercely loyal, fun-loving. I could get into this costume. That would be helpful. Oh, I remember the long, dark winters were spent with warm mead, warm flesh, hot fires, wolves howling, us howling back, and howling with laughter at each other's ridiculous stories. Nature's echoes rang through the fog creeping over the fjords, and black trees stood like castle walls around the settlements. I had been around, but there was something special about that place. Something dark and old and deep and sacred. A power that comes from the desperateness a land like that creates. I settled there for a while, singing my songs, telling my tales, and I learned new tales. The Norsemen have the most exciting and, well, frankly, absurd stories. For instance, the tale of Ragnarok, the doom of the gods. The first sign of the coming of Ragnarok is the arrival of Naglfar. Naglfar is made from the fingernails of the dead. And so my friends in the north would trim their nails every day so that in case they died, they would not speed the coming of Naglfar and the end of the world. But the myth of Ragnarok is best expressed in song. Askve textanda heti Yggdrasils ständerna över grunnor där brunn. Thadden komma mojar, margs gitantriar, fer låg du, fer liv kuru. Skøden Yggdrasils asker standandi, sist Jörmungande vi, Jotunmodi arken i rennar i lakar. Sitter på i fyller nagelfar lossnar, singat vägar fyr, stännurum. Västermon slitna en förräkirarna. Fjolvetek frada, bramsek längra, Ragnarok, Rom siktiva. Take that, Marvel. I stayed in the north for some time, learning to wield a sword and to build ships. And then one day, when I had just arrived in a new village and I was on my way to the Jarl's Hall to announce myself, I saw her. She was training on the shore of the fjord with the Vikings and the other shield maidens. Ostrid, the most fagud, fodelsket, panemorpho, beautiful thing I'd ever seen in all my 1,000 years of life. She is the one who truly taught me to spar, to fight. We spent every day together training on the sand. It was as swift and as final as the blow of an axe. We fell in love. But Ostrid isn't here anymore. She hasn't been for a long time. After Ostrid, I had no reason to live anymore, but I couldn't die, so I just floated. And at first it was the Dark Ages anyway, so that was fitting. My skills as an entertainer served me well. They often bought me lodging, plenty of free ale and wine so that I could drown my sorrows. Despite abandoning lives over and over again, I've always enjoyed my immortality. But after Ostrid, it was not the same. Do you mind? Thank you. There's not much else to tell you about the Dark Ages. I drank a lot. slept a lot, tried not to be accused of witchcraft. I did not always succeed. And after that, the Renaissance. The world woke up. But I was still in my big depression, as I call it, until Claudio. Person who showed me the light of one of the most splendid periods in history was Claudio. Monteverdi, as you may know him, and if you don't know who he was a fantastic composer. So sensual. I met Monteverdi in 1600 at the wedding of Maria de' Medici and King Henry IV of France. And did you know that King Henry wasn't even there at his own wedding? It was pretty fucking rude. But he was only marrying Marie to pay off a debt to her family, so it was back then. I was performing in Eurydice, Jacopo Peri's second opera. The second opera ever to exist, and I was in it. I remember that Monteverdi was in the audience that night. I saw him as soon as I came out from behind the set. His face glowing in the candlelight amidst an audience quietly whispering to each other behind fans and clove-spiked oranges. I had read a scathing treatise of his work that made it all the more enticing to me. So, at the end of the performance, I threw him a beckoning glance and went to take some air by the window. And that's how we first met. I spent the better part of a year working at the court of Mantua, where Monteverdi and I maintained a flirtatious friendship, leaving notes for each other under a loose tile in the courtyard and taking long walks in the gardens. It was fun and playful. like Widowster and I had. And his music was so beautiful. Finally, I was truly alive in the Renaissance. It excited and aroused me to be surrounded by such vibrant people, passionate about learning, about science, and about art. And it was a time of indulgence. Simple pleasures. Can you guess what arrived in Europe then? The best of all the simple pleasures? Chocolate! And what the Dutch did with it. Divine. Take one and pass it down. You can pass it to him. Make sure you don't miss him. If only I could have my first taste of chocolate again. It would be like reading Harry Potter for the first time. Oh, the Renaissance, I miss it. It was so sexy and throbbing with life and passion. Do you mind? All the way, please. Thank you. After that, things changed a lot for me. Society was progressing, and I was on a bit of a rebound. It was the age of enlightenment, and there was a lot of action. I mean, what a time. I revisited piracy for a while, spent a lot of time in the Caribbean. In fact, there are a number of famous lady pirates you may have heard of who were actually moi. That life grows tiresome eventually, though it does lend itself to the lifestyle of constantly faking my own death and otherwise traveling from one life to the next. I went back to Europe and settled in France. Okay. Oh, I gotta tell you guys, I really don't miss this at all. Oh, I was hosting salons since they were finally all the rage again, and when it was time to move on, I made my way to Vienna. I was performing these little burlesque acts. We would sing and dance and mock the local culture, its politicians, its celebrities, and that's where I met one of my most exhilarating friends. One night, we were performing this funny bit about a new composer who'd become all the rage in Vienna. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was in the audience. So at the end of the I always do that. At the end of the night, I received an anonymous note with an address and a time to meet. And normally I would be suspicious of this kind of thing. But it was at one of my favorite cafes and in the middle of the day, so I went. And imagine my surprise when I arrived at the cafe and Mozart himself waved me over to his table. And the thing about Wolfie is that he loved a good joke and he never took himself too seriously. We spent hours laughing together, and after that we were inseparable. And what an amazing thing it was to get to sing his music. Sometimes it would be a comedic toilet humor song like, "Good night, you are quite an ox." Or, "Shit the bed and make it burst." Or my very favorite, "Lick my ass." Do you guys know that one? Lech mich im Arsch.
Oh.
We would sing them in my salons together. So. Other times, it would be his grand operatic arias sung for visiting nobility. Oh God, I never quite had the patience to observe all of the customs of whatever culture I found myself in, especially those expected of me as a woman, and Wolfie let me be me. That was what I loved about him. He was a chameleon. And he was the only person of consequence, well, of influence, who I ever told my secret to. One night we were tucked away in the back corner of our favorite bar, laughing together, and all of a sudden I felt this urge to tell him everything. And the thing about Mozart was he had such a strong sense of wonder and imagination and play. I actually thought he might believe me, or that at least he'd play along. I knew he wouldn't commit me to an insane asylum or accuse me of heresy, so I told him. And he acted like he believed me. I mean, who knows? But it made us closer. And after that, he composed a piece just for me. And after that, Mozart and I shared the inside joke of my immortality. Inside joke. During the Great War, I moved around a lot. I escaped a lot. And after that, I heard that Berlin was throwing one hell of an after party. To be honest, I don't actually know what would happen if I got blown to pieces. I've seen a lot of wars. Had more of a hand in many of them than I'd care to admit. And I've seen the YOLO culture that happens when they're over. It's like a near-death experience on a mass scale, and suddenly, everyone has had to face their own mortality or the mortality of their loved ones. It can drive you to drink and fuck, so that's what we did. I made my way to Berlin. Each night, we descended to the softly glowing underbelly, pulsating with beaded bodies swaying to the new sounds of jazz. The air a swirling cyclone of hot breath and cigarette smoke. A cigarette is so much better when you can really inhale. 400 years of this. Well, drinking and fucking and art in Berlin. I worked in cabarets most nights. I have bright red hair, I dance as well as Salome, and treat my Baptists just as fair. I wore Mata Hari's dress, the ring of Marie Antoinette, the fairest Helen wore this corset to a gala Trojan fete. I am the poison of the Borgias, I'm a witch like Joan of Arc. I wear the stockings of Du Paris, bathe in coffins for a lord. I am a vamp, half woman, half beast. I bite my men and suck them dry, and then I bake them in a pie. I am a vamp, it's all I can do. I'm not mild-mannered like you, and oh no, no, no. My passion takes over, and off I go. I should really be kept in a zoo. All that's wild and weird and crazy I've been known to collect. I have Klemperer's piano and the cat of Bertolt Brecht. I am not a Hari Secrets, Wally Simpson's amethyst. In a frame upon my wall hangs a Valentino kiss. It's true that some of my collection I have found in others' trash, like the Weimar Constitution, also Hitler's first mustache. I am a vamp, half woman, half beast. I bite my men and suck them dry, and then I bake them in a pie. I am a vamp, it's all I can do. I'm not mild-mannered like you, and oh no, my passion takes over, and off I go. I should really be kept in a zoo. I have a prince to write my letters. Every servant is a count. At the stables, King Alfonso helps me get astride my mount. Thomas Mann gives me a facial using Garbo's beauty creams. I'm sung to sleep by Richard Talbot. The Prince of Wales is in my dreams. Today von Sternberg called and offered me a stunning leading role. When I'm a star, he'll start to worship me, and then I'll eat him. Oh. I am a vamp, half woman, half beast. I bite my men and suck them dry, and then I bake them in a pie. I am a vamp, it's all I can do. I'm not mild-mannered like you, and oh no, my passion takes over, and I should really be kept in a zoo. You look nervous. But don't worry, I don't really drink blood or eat people, I promise. It's not how my immortality works. To be honest, I don't actually know how my immortality works. Maybe I just age really, really slowly. I did notice a new wrinkle right here after the first 1,500 years. Maybe I'm not really immortal. Anyway, before I was innocent. I mean, I was smart and powerful and respected in my community. Even Socrates got most of his ideas from me, and of course Plato never gave me any credit. But when I entered this, I knew nothing. At a certain point in my first life, I became despondent that I should have to die and never learn the secrets of the universe, that I should never know the answer of the atom, what drives the human body, or what the stars and planets are made of. I could not bear the weight of such ignorance. And so, I went on a journey to Olympus and knelt at the foot of the mountain, calling to the gods to give me the gift. I did not eat, I did not drink, I only knelt and asked the gods to allow the truths of the universe to enter me. I sat for a long, long time. I still hadn't had a drink of water, hadn't eaten, and suddenly wishing just wasn't enough. So I began to climb the mountain. As I climbed, the wind whipped my body, and the dry ground turned frost and piles of snow that loomed around me. I had no furs, nothing to protect me from the cold, but I did not freeze. I kept on climbing, and eventually I entered a thick mist. I could not see, so I felt my feet and hands until suddenly I broke free from the clouds and looked out upon a golden, gleaming hall that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was the most glorious thing I had ever seen. I saw the backs of 100 gods and goddesses scattering away, leaving me alone at the door of Olympus. Thunder shook the temple. A figure, the ideal man, muscled, fierce eyes, and then he brushed me off like a biting fly. I tumbled in a blur of ice and stone to the foot of the mountain and lay there bleeding, expecting oblivion, without ever tasting the knowledge I had sought. But oblivion never came. I healed. And now I'm this. I assume it was meant to give me the chance to learn, to see things that no one else would see. And I have learned a lot of things. Did you know that a good friend of mine, Democritus, invented the idea of the atom in his own mind? Back in ancient Greece, 2,200 years before Dalton made it a theory in 1808. I wished so badly that I could go back and tell him, "You were right, my friend. I've seen wonders. I have been at the sides of so many great artists and scientists and inventors as they made their discoveries and created their masterpieces. I have seen so much joy and love and curiosity and compassion. And pain. After several years of happiness with Ostrid, training on the icy shores, drinking mead, and singing songs, it became clear to me that there was nothing in the world that I could learn that would matter more to me than the truths that she would whisper to me in the night. I had already lived for over 1,000 years, holding back from any true connection with anyone in order to stay safe and not drive myself insane with grief every time I had to move on to a new life. And I had barely learned anything. It had not been a productive millennium. How long would I have to live once Ostrid was gone just to get any answers? Was it worth it? No, I could not live alone on the earth any longer, just crawling around for any scrap of truth. The truths of the universe were a long way away, but the deepest truth I had yet learned, the love of my soulmate, was right there for the keeping. I had been willing to live forever for knowledge. But I was willing to give it up, to die with Ostrid. So I went into the forest to call to the gods once more. I knelt in a sacred place and sent up my plea. Fisum kins at hata.
I desire my death now.
Hem bioda merdisi.
The Disir call me home.
Sempra herian solu.
Whom Heron hastens onward.
Hefer Odin mersendar.
From Odin's hall to take me.
Glader skalk ol medosum.
On the high bench boldly.
I ond veki drekka.
Beer I'll drink with the gods.
Livs lidnar stunder.
Hope of life is lost now.
Lyendi skalk doya.
Laughing I shall die.
I waited. And then a crow landed on the wet ground in front of me and eyed me with a black gaze. And then he spoke to me, which at this point, shocker. He told me that he would not grant my wish for mortality, but that instead, he would make Ostrid immortal. That we should return at moonrise to receive his gift. I left the forest and went down to the shore of the fjord to think. Maybe this was meant to be. We could be together, we could travel the world throughout the centuries, tasting all of the things and seeing all of the sights and hearing all of the music that would ever be. Two immortal lovers walking side by side throughout eternity. Paradise. Now, I just had to somehow explain all of this to Ostrid in a few hours. And let me tell you, it was awkward trying to explain it all to her, but Ostrid was perceptive. She had long sensed something in me that she couldn't quite explain, and the Northerners were spiritual people with a strong sense of magic and lore. We went back to the sacred place in the forest together, just giddy. I mean, so excited. It was like a fantasy coming true, a fairy tale. Then the crow appeared. He looked up at Ostrid and said, "Are you ready to become immortal?" I saw her eyes widen, and just as the yes was leaving her lips, the crow transformed into a man. Great roots shot out of the ground and wrapped around Ostrid's body so fast they consumed her. Ostrid screamed, and the bark of a great tree that had not been there before squeezed shut until I could barely hear her voice coming from within it. And then I saw the creature for who he truly was. Loki, the trickster god. Loki looked into my stunned eyes with his cold ones and said, "Your lover will remain trapped and conscious in the body of this tree for the rest of eternity unless you do as I bid you." Since that day, more than 1,000 years ago, Loki has sent me on these missions. Whenever he needs me, I receive a location somewhere in the world. I go there and I sing, and when I do, things happen. He's using me somehow to change history. Sometimes it's obvious, and other times I can only hope that the events that followed had nothing to do with me. I don't know what he wants, but I do know that I will never get Ostrid back on Loki's terms. He took my soul, but he gave me the deepest purpose I have ever known, to get her back. I've been searching for the answer all this time, how to defeat him, how to outsmart him. I haven't found it yet, but I will not give up. I am going to get Ostrid back. He sent me here to the Fringe. I don't know why, but I thought, why not take this opportunity to tell my story after keeping it hidden for so long? Why not shout it? Why not connect with all of you and let you see the real me? You might not believe me anyway, but maybe, just maybe, you're like me. You've heard my story, and you know the truth in it, and maybe you can help me. A 1,000 years we've been apart, and to this day you've had my heart. I felt no joy, I've had no place since you were torn from my embrace. But deep inside, beneath my breast, resides a force I've long suppressed, and once unlocked, it will burst through the dark confines that keep me from you. Awaken truth, awaken light, dispel the bad, protect what's right. Awaken courage, awaken might, release my love, release my love. I shall not rest, I shall not yield until our fate is truly sealed, and to that end I'll sacrifice my flesh and bones, if that is the price. Awaken hope, awaken pride, if danger lurks, stay by my side. Do not diminish, do not subside, From this moment on, I'm embarking on my own mission. For your safe return, I don't need someone else's permission. Though I didn't know it, the power's been mine all along. And it starts with my voice. It starts with a song. A song. It starts with this song. Truth and light, release my love. Courage might release my love. Release my love.
Happy Babirak.